Hello, good evening to everyone. I am Mark Anthony P. ASIS and I will be presenting the third chapter of the book Silent Spring by Rachel Carson. The said chapter have subtitled Elixirs of Death. I have summarized important details and gave my own reflection. So, let's start. First summary. For the first time in history, every human being is exposed to dangerous chemicals from the moment they are conceived. These substances have been found everywhere in organisms in remote lakes, earthworms burrowing in the soil, and humans all over the world. Their production began during World War II and has grown rapidly ever since. New pesticides are incredibly potent. Rachel Carson warns, with the ability to affect important processes in the body. If we are to live so closely with them, then we had better understand them better. Reflection. This is a new era of man. Even though these synthetic chemicals have only been in existence for 2 decades. By using them so extensively, we have already changed our environment in several but all pervasive ways, so that all of us have been exposed to these chemicals. It is public's responsibility to become educated about the chemicals that have invaded its present and will continue shape its future. Second summary. Arsenic is chief among the older inorganic pesticides. It is naturally occurring in a small amount and highly toxic, a favorite poison since the time of the Borgias, an infamous dynasty from the Italian Renaissance. Arsenic contamination kills many species and has carcinogenic or the cancer causing effect in humans. Nevertheless, it is sprayed with supreme carelessness, according to Dr. W. C. Hooper, a leading expert on environmental cancers. Reflection. By recalling the use of arsenic by Borgia family, Rachel Carson's means to emphasize the chemical's infamous past as a deadly poison and in doing so question how modern people could possibly use it as a pesticide that is sprayed so carelessly. That's why she also introduced that will become a major topic later. The idea that pesticides can cause cancer, a disease that many of her readers will have some experience with. Third summary. Modern insecticides are deadlier still. There are the chlorinated hydrocarbons, including DDT. DDT stands for dichlorodiphenyl trichloroethane, and the organic phosphorus insecticides, including malathion and parathion. They are organic, built from carbon atoms within methane molecules that have been altered in small but significant ways. Normally, for example, methane is composed of one carbon atom and four hydrogen atoms. But scientists have discovered that substituting chlorine for one of the hydrogen atom create methyl chloride. Reflection. Whereas arsenic occurs naturally in small doses, these new pesticides are a creation of man, and man has outdone himself, manufacturing a range of deadly poisons. On the one hand, Rachel Carson seems to celebrate the ingenuity of modern science, but she also underlines the unpredictable nature of the changes created by small alterations in the molecular makeup of these chemicals. Summary 4. DDT is often thought of as harmless because it was used in powder for combat lice during World War II. However, in liquid form, it is much more toxic and can accumulate in the body over time. Scientists disagree about what level of accumulation and tolerable, but studies have shown that a majority of people carry unsafe level stored in their body fat, cells, and vital organs, where it can build up over time. DDT in fat cells is then released over time with exertion, leading to chronic poisoning. Reflection. DDT would become a focus of Carson's followers, who eventually succeed in getting it banned in 1972. Carson's focus on the issue of accumulation, in which repeated exposures of a safe level build up with the body to produce unsafe levels of exposure, highlights how little we know about the behavior of the chemicals we are using in the real world. Her attitude of caution, skepticism, is lined with the precautionary principles. Next example. The chemical is transmitted through the food chain and even from mother to child. If a crop of alfalfa is dusted with DDT and then chickens and are fed with infected alfalfa, their eggs have been shown to contain DDT afterwards. The same mechanism of transfer has been found to function in human mothers who transmitted DDT through the placenta during pregnancy or in their breast milk. Reflection. The idea that DDT and other toxins can be passed across the germline, which is to say, from generation to generation, raises a new set of moral questions. We are not only poisoning ourselves, but also transferring mutation and toxins to the next generation who bear no responsibility for their creation. Next summary. Codeine, heptachlor, dieldrin, and aldrin are other pesticides in the same family or chlorinated hydrocarbons as DDT. And each is widely used in aerial spraying of crops. Each also builds up through food chains and over time. It is many times more toxic than DDT, with evidence of seizures, sterility, and death resulting from exposure. In one instance, a group of pesticide sprayers working against malaria mosquitoes substituted dieldrin for their usual DDT, and exposure to the chemical led to seizures and death among sprayers themselves. Reflection. By listing the types of pesticide, Carson underlined their variety and how widespread they are. This anecdote of this poison sprays is particularly evocative. The workers, in their attempt to use the sprays against the mosquitoes, wound up injuring themselves. This mirrors what Carson believes to be happening on a larger scale. Humans, in their war against the pest, are poisoning themselves, perhaps fatally. Next summary. Indrin is the most toxic pesticide of all for birds. It is 300 times more toxic than DDT. Carson recounts a series of terrifying anecdotes of its use, including the story of a child who went into permanent vegetative state and a small family dog that died within hours after they had preyed on the floor that had been sprayed against insects. Reflection. Carson uses the story of a small dog and infant to make the effects of these toxic pesticides tragically real to the readers by demonstrating their ability to harm the most innocent and helpless members of society. Who is responsible? The horrified parent or the companies who sold the spray? Next summary. Organic phosphate, the second group of pesticides, have their origins in German labs, where they were discovered by a chemist named Gerhard Schrader and then weaponized during World War II as nerve gas. They attack the nervous system, destroying enzymes that are vital to the proper transmission of impulses from nerve to nerve. Without this enzyme, an excess of transmitters build up, causing convulsion and death. Reflection. The fact that the development of many pesticides came as a result of weapons researching during World War II further supports Carson's idea of wars against nature. And in reminding her readers of this fact, Carson's also underlines the strangeness of the former weapons being used as though it were completely harmless, highlighting its dangerous effect on the nervous system. Next summary. An enzyme in the body naturally protects against the effect of organic phosphates, but repeated exposure in small doses can wear this defensive measure away. Instances of parathion poisoning are increasing in the US, and although they are less persistent than other pesticides, organic phosphates effect can be extreme. Reflection. This point reinforces the idea that pesticide cannot be thought of in terms of individual exposures. The natural defenses of the body are part of the ecological balance developed over millennia that Carson has described, and their disruption has unexpected consequences. Summary. Malathion, another organic phosphate widely used in home gardening, demonstrates another important principle about synthetic chemicals. In combination, they can react together in unexpected ways to inhibit natural defenses and become much deadlier. Further, these combinations can happen inside the body from separate exposures that happen over time, since chemicals build up in the body's tissues. Reflection. Another warning that although individual chemicals can be tested in isolation, the ways that they will interact in the environment or even within the body itself are much more difficult to predict. This basic unpredictability is a major reason to follow precautionary principle. Summary 11. Synthetic insecticides are used to make plants poisonous to the pests that eat them. Carson compares them to the mythical dress that media of ancient Greek mythology gave to a rival to revile, which when worn caused a violent death. This built-in insecticide make all of the tissue of a plant or animal toxic to the insect that prey on them. But this toxicity can also be transferred in uncontrollable ways to living beings other than the targeted pest. Reflection. As with her, her earlier reference to the Borgias, when Carson's her compares systemic insecticide to media's deadly dress, she is drawing upon a common cultural well of knowledge about poisons. By associating pesticide with this tradition, she is challenging their perception as simple, harmless, helpful sprays. Last summary. Herbicides, poisons that target plants are also toxic. And the myth that they are no threat to animal life is false. Many have been banned in England and Australia, although no such restriction exists in the United States. Dinitro, penta, and amitrol are examples of herbicide with hidden cancer-causing effect that can sometimes be transferred down the germline, meaning that their effect carry on from one generation to another. If we are so worried about nuclear radiation, asked Carson, how can we be indifferent to the synthetic chemicals in our environment? Reflection. Widening the scope of her argument from pesticide to herbicides, Carson continues this challenge by comparing the policies of other major countries to the United States. She legitimates the concern about cancer caused by such sprays. Finally, by comparing the effect of synthetic chemicals to those of nuclear radiation, she takes advantage of an issue, the nuclear radiation, that at the time had earned a lot of public attention and concern in order to create urgency. That's all. Thank you.